So in this demonstration, I'm going to start off with my number 5 guard, cutting from the front to the back against the grain, using a comb to brush out any of the hair that has already been cut. So I'm going to go around the hair, making sure to cut against the grain in every single pattern that the hair grows in. So normally, like at the top in this area, you'll see that there's a cowlick, or he has some type of crazy growth pattern. You just want to make sure you're cutting against the grain the whole time and using a comb or brush to remove all the excess hair as you're cutting. I'm going to just continue to cut everything until it's all even. And I'm going to take my M3 Styliner. Using only a portion of the blade, I'm going to make my first guideline. Normally I don't like to skin the taper or make my first guideline any higher than that. Notice how I left a little bit of a hair out on the hairline. I'm now going to take my masters and make my second guideline with my lever back, using only a portion of the blade. Keep going over this pattern a few times with the C motion. This will make sure that you're leaving a soft guideline at the top, and it'll make it easier to fade out the guidelines later. Now if you see here, as I continue to fade lower under that guideline, I'm going to start to actually close my lever slightly. I'm going to close it, I'm going to work slightly under that guideline, and then I'm going to close it some more and work directly under that guideline until it eventually fades in with the skin part. Now you may see there's a few little dark spots here, but just start with it halfway and cut against the grain in different patterns to make sure, and to cut this hair and make sure that it looks even and symmetrical with the other side of the guideline. If you're having trouble, just use maybe 1 or 2 teeth, and it'll help you out. I'm going to take my number 0 guard. I'm going to begin to create my next guideline with the lever back. So when I'm creating this guideline, I'm still using this C motion, and I've switched from a comb to a brush. Now that'll make sure that you're cleaning up everything and you're really removing the hair that's finely cut. So then you're going to go and lower your lever a little bit and begin to cut directly under that guideline as well. And repeat the process with this number 2 guard. I'm not going to want to lighten too much of this, and I want to go in these patterns. This will make sure you don't raise the fade too high on the sides. So I'm going to create a number 2 guideline, 2.5, I'm sorry. And then I'm going to close the lever as I begin to fade down, lightening it in all the dark spots. Notice how I'm using only 2 or 3 teeth of the blade, and I'm using the angles to make sure I'm only cutting just the targeted area. I'm going to take my 1 guard and begin to lighten in those dark spots. Once again, using just a little piece of the blade. It's just a corner of the blade. I actually show and demonstrate later on the angle that you want to use. So notice as I go, I'm starting to, with the lever pulled back, using that C motion, and closing the lever slightly as I move down in the fade. Now I'm going to take my number 3 and clean up all this dark line right here, and remove some of that bulk to make it smooth. Now I'm going to use just a portion of the blade to lighten up this stem. I'm going to use only a portion of the blade to lighten that corner. I'm going to slightly flick at it. Now I'm going to take my 1 guard and just begin to do some touch-up work. Go in there using only 1 or 2 teeth and just flicking away, man. And when I'm cutting, I like to use a pattern If you notice, I do a couple flicks and then I'll start brushing, then a couple flicks, then 2 brushes, then a couple flicks, then 2 brushes. It just gets me in a tempo. Now I'm going to take my GTX Andis T outliner and start by edging the back of the sideburn. Now I'm going to use my thumb on the other hand to guide the clipper so it doesn't lose control as I make this. I'm going to use small C's or small circles to round the side of the head, giving it a nice curve. You don't want to curve too much, just enough to create a sharp line. I see a lot of people out there doing hooks and some crazy stuff, you know. I just like to make sure that it's even with the eyebrow, with the curve of the eyebrow. So now I'm going to go in there with the master and just begin to lighten up the sideburns so that it blends in with the haircut a lot easier. And then go back and edge this front line. Now I'm going to take my M3 Styliner and begin to make the guides on the back of the skin taper. I'm going to start by making my first guideline at the bottom of the earlobe using a C motion and making the line consistent and straight all the way through. I'm now going to take my masters with the lever back and begin to create my next guideline. This guideline is going to be to about right here on the ear. It's about an inch above the first guideline that I made. So I'm using that C motion once again, or that flick motion, and I'm making this guideline consistent all the way through. Now I'm going to start working directly under that guideline by closing my lever and moving down in my fade, the way I demonstrated earlier. Sometimes the hair isn't going to fade as easy as it does on this video. Just work with the hair, make sure that you brush it, make sure that you're using only a couple of teeth to lighten the really dark areas, like I'm doing right here, just touching everything up. Sometimes when you're trying to create the guidelines, the hair just doesn't cut even, but everybody can get an even haircut. You just have to make sure that the darker spots are cut shorter and it looks like it's blended completely even. These sides right here, I'd like to point something out. Like normally when you're given a taper, it'll fade higher in the back, in the middle, than it does on the sides. I like to fade up a little higher on the sides than in the middle. And now I'm going to take my zero guard with my lever back and begin to create my next guideline. This guideline is going to be about a ½ inch now. So as we move up, we're going to slowly shrink the size of our guidelines. So we start at the bottom. Our first guideline will be an inch, and the second guideline you want to make it like a ½ inch. And continue to fade under, closing your lever. Then my next guideline is going to be about a ¼ inch because I want to make sure that I'm not raising the fade or the taper in the back. So I'm going to close the lever here and just continue to fade out these dark spots. Now using the zero, I'm just going to keep flicking with my lever closed, making sure to remove that bottom guideline. Remember, on the corners, you're going to want to fade it a little higher. With my number one, I'm going to start with the lever back and start to shrink my guideline. It's a little smaller than the guideline we made before. So with this, I'm just going to start with my lever back and just lightly flick at the bulk line. And when I mean lightly, I mean it's really a soft touch. You barely want to be touching the head. You just kind of want to lift the hair lightly just to lighten some of the bulk and really clarify the picture of how the taper is going to be finished. And slowly, close your lever and then work directly under that guideline that you just made. Lightening only in the dark spots. You'll see like a little bit on the left how it's kind of already fading itself. That's because of the light touch that I'm using while I'm fading. So, I'll start off with a very light pressure and then I'll begin if there's a little tough spot that I can't cut, I'll apply a little bit more pressure or go lower on the guard. Now I'm going to take the two and begin to lighten all this bulk. You don't normally want to go any higher than this on the back of the taper. This is like the back of the occipital bone and the back of the head. So normally you don't want to go any higher than that. So you're really going to play the C motion here, or the flick motion, with your lever back, and just flirt right around that bone, just to make sure you don't go any higher with the guideline. And you can close your lever and begin to take out the rest of that bulk to make sure that the fade is completely even and smooth in the back. Notice how I'm cutting on the corners at an angle, and I'm only using a portion of the blade. Or if I'm running the clipper up and down and I see that it's not cutting, I'll go in a different pattern, make sure I cut. So like you see his hair in the back, on the left hand side it's growing towards the left and to the bottom, and on the right hand side it's swooping down to the right to the bottom corner. So I'm just making sure that I'm playing, using the clipper, cutting in angles to make sure that the hair is removed. Now this is the final touches. I'm just going to go in there and basically barely flick at the bulk, just so that you can't see those dark bulky spots at the transition point where you're going from the short hair to the long hair. So I really want to just really lightly flick and just emphasize how light you have to be on the pressure when you're fading. The more pressure you apply, the harder it's going to be for you to remove those guidelines. So now, using my T outliner, I'm going to start edging around the ear using only a corner. Notice how I use my thumb on the opposite hand to pull up the skin. This will give you a lot more clearance when you're edging around the ear, so you can clear the ear. But be careful not to raise or white wall is what they call it. That's when you have that big white line around your ear. You don't want to leave nobody with that. So just be cautious and know that you're pulling up the skin. So lightly just edge up the hairs. Now I'm gonna go on the opposite side, and I'm just gonna show you guys the exact same steps that I took before as I'm fading, making the first line, then pulling my lever back, moving the lever forward as I go down, working with my zero with the lever back. This is a very basic technique that I use, and it's very easy to explain. So now I see I'm using only the corners. Yeah, I'm just showing you guys how to use the corners, and notice how the other side is like, not touching the head. So yeah, we're just gonna keep flicking here, using the same guards, the same process, the same way, just to make sure that you get a consistent and you get the same effect. You want to make sure that your fade is coming out the same on every time, or you want to make sure that your fade's coming out the same on every side. Now I'm going to go back with the one and begin to do some spot treatment. It's alright if you see that you're fading and the line isn't coming out as smooth as you see it, or if something's happening and it doesn't look like it does in this video. Everyone's hair is different, so you may have to go back in there later and do some spot treatment, but ain't nothing wrong with that. Just when you see it as you're fading, just know you have to go back. Don't panic. Sometimes I think it's even better if you take a break and even work on the other side and go back to a side that's giving you some trouble. And you find it a lot easier when you work with the person's hair. Someone's side is always harder. Now I'm going to show you guys something on the edge here, which is these corners. You want to make sure the corners are even first, and then you're going to start edging the hairline up in the middle. Now when you're edging the hairline, you don't want to pull the person's hairline back, so you want to make sure that you're keeping everything nice and natural. I like to edge and then pull away from the hairline, because as you're edging, you'll notice that once the clipper hits some hair, it starts to slide, and you can possibly pull someone's hairline back. Now I'm gonna just go around and clean up the mustache and the beard. You know, make sure that he's looking fresh to death and he's in the game like EA Sports. You know, we want to make sure that, you know, they're leaving the chair and that customers are asking them and potential customers are saying, damn man, where you get your hair cut at? You know, who did that? I like it, it's clean. But that'll help you when you're marketing yourself. So now I'm gonna just take my AndyFadeMaster razor and I'm gonna begin to detail the shape up, pulling the skin with my opposite hand, then using the blade at a 45-degree angle, resting it on the skin and cutting the hair against the grain. Notice when you see me blading, I'm pulling the skin, but I'm not yanking it too tight. I'm just creating some type of tension so that the blade can smoothly glide on the head and it doesn't form any wrinkles or cut them. So you just want to pull gently with your opposite finger, you know, to make sure that you're pulling the skin away and then cutting the hair against the grain with the straight razor. And when you use the razor, use more of, you know, your wrist and use a very, very light pressure because those blades are really sharp. But here you go. This is the ending result of the skin taper that we had today with a number 5 and cleaning up everything with my Andis Master. Hope you guys liked the video. If you do, subscribe. Hit the like button, mash it, share it with your friends. You never know who might need this information or who this might benefit. So, you know, with this being said, subscribe to my channel, hit the like button, and I'll see you guys next time.